The whispers followed Georgiana Mitchell like dust clouds behind a stagecoach as she stepped onto the platform at Sweetwater Springs in the summer of 1877. The Montana Territory was supposed to be her fresh start, but small towns had long memories and telegraph wires carried gossip faster than horses. "Used goods," someone muttered just loud enough for her to hear. "Poor thing thinks she can hide what she is." Georgiana kept her chin high, though her heart hammered against her ribs. 23 years old with nothing but a carpetbag of possessions, and a past she couldn't outrun. The scandal that drove her from Boston still clung to her like perfume, the broken engagement, the accusations, the shame of loving unwisely. She smoothed her travel-worn skirts and scanned the dusty main street that stretched before her. The stagecoach pulled away, leaving her alone on the wooden platform. She'd come west on a promise from her late father's friend, a job as a schoolteacher that would give her purpose and dignity again. "Madam, you looking for someone?" The station master eyed her suspiciously. "Mr. Holbrook." "Thomas Holbrook, I believe he's expecting me." The station master's face changed immediately. "Oh, you're the woman from Boston." His tone left no doubt he knew exactly who and what she was. "I am Miss Mitchell, yes." She refused to let her voice waver. "Holbrook's dead, madam. Pneumonia took him last month." The ground seemed to shift beneath her feet. "But the position filled. Town council didn't think it proper to have someone of your reputation teaching the children." Her carefully planned future crumbled like dry earth. No job, no home. No prospects in a town that had already judged her. "Perhaps there's a boarding house where I might stay while I consider alternatives," she asked, desperation edging into her voice. The station master looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Whitley's is the only proper establishment, and she's particular about her guests." Georgiana understood his meaning all too well. No respectable establishment would have her. "Is there a problem here, Ellis?" A deep voice cut through their conversation. Georgiana turned to see a tall man approaching. Dust coated his denim trousers and cotton shirt, and his face was partially shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. Unlike the station master's scrutiny, his gaze was direct but not unkind. "No problem, Wyatt. Just explaining to Miss Mitchell here that her arrangements have fallen through." "I see." The man called Wyatt studied her with interest. "You're the schoolteacher Holbrook sent for." "I was to be," Georgiana said, trying to maintain her dignity. "But circumstances have changed." "They sure have," the station master added. "Town council says we can't have someone with her background influencing the young ones." Wyatt's expression darkened. "That right. She's used goods, Wyatt. Everyone knows what happened back east." Georgiana flinched as if she'd been struck. Her throat tightened and she fought to keep tears from spilling. She'd endured this shame for nearly a year, but hearing it spoken so casually still cut deep. "I'll take her," Wyatt said suddenly, "just as she is." Both Georgiana and the station master stared at him. "Beg your pardon." Georgiana found her voice first. "I said I'll take her," Wyatt repeated, his voice firm. "My sister Grace needs help at the Double R, cook, housekeeper, whatever you can manage, Miss Mitchell. It's honest work if you want it." Suspicion flared in Georgiana's mind. She'd received such generous offers before, from men with anything but honorable intentions. "And what would be expected of me in return, Mr. Wyatt Ryder?" "And nothing more than the work, madam. Grace runs a respectable home. You'll have your own room and fair wages." The station master snorted. "You're a fool, Ryder. Town's already talking." Wyatt ignored him, focusing on Georgiana. "It's your choice, Miss Mitchell, but my offer stands." Georgiana assessed her options. She had enough money for perhaps 2 nights at a hotel if one would take her. After that, destitution awaited. This Wyatt Ryder might be lying about his intentions, but he was offering her a chance when no one else would. "I accept your offer, Mr. Ryder," she said finally. "Thank you." Wyatt nodded, picking up her carpet bag. "My wagon's this way." He led her down the platform, past the curious stares of townspeople. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. He glanced at her, eyes the color of a summer sky. "Everyone deserves a second chance, Miss Mitchell, even those the world's given up on." His words settled into the hollow space in her chest where hope had once lived. "The ranch is about 5 miles out," he continued. "It's not much, but it's peaceful." As they walked toward a simple wagon hitched to 2 sturdy horses, Georgiana felt the weight of the town's judgment pressing on her back. But for the first time in months, she also felt something else, the faint stirring of possibility. The Double R Ranch sprawled across a green valley cradled by rolling hills. The main house was modest but well built, with a wide porch and smoke curling from the chimney. A barn and several outbuildings dotted the property, and in the distance, cattle grazed on summer grass. Georgiana sat stiffly beside Wyatt during the journey, maintaining a proper distance. He hadn't pressed her for details about her past, for which she was grateful. Instead, he'd spoken of practical matters: the ranch, his sister Grace, the work that needed doing. "Here we are," Wyatt said as they approached. "Home." A slender woman with auburn hair emerged from the house, wiping her hands on an apron. Her resemblance to Wyatt was unmistakable, the same straight nose and determined chin, though her eyes were brown instead of blue. "You're back early," she called, then noticed Georgiana. Surprise flickered across her face. Wyatt helped Georgiana down from the wagon. "Grace, this is Miss Georgiana Mitchell. She's going to be helping you around the place." Grace's eyebrows rose. "Is she now? First I've heard of it." "It was a recent development," Wyatt explained. "Miss Mitchell's arrangements in town fell through." Understanding dawned in Grace's expression. "You're the school teacher they sent for." "Yes," Georgiana admitted, "though it appears the position is no longer available to me." Grace's gaze was assessing but not unkind. "Well, I could use the help, that's certain. Can you cook?" "Reasonably well." "So clean?" "Yes to both." Grace nodded. "Come inside then, I'll show you where you'll stay." As Grace led her into the house, Georgiana glanced back to see Wyatt watching them, his expression unreadable. When their eyes met, he tipped his hat slightly before turning to unharness the horses. The room Grace showed her was small but clean, with a narrow bed, a chest of drawers, and a window overlooking the mountains to the west. "It's not fancy," Grace said, "but it's private." "It's perfect," Georgiana replied honestly. After months of uncertainty, even this simple space felt like a sanctuary. Grace leaned against the doorframe. "My brother's a good man, Miss Mitchell. Too good sometimes. Takes in strays of all sorts." "Is that what I am? A stray?" A smile flickered across Grace's face. "Aren't we all in one way or another?" She straightened. "Supper's in an hour. You can rest until then." Left alone, Georgiana sat on the edge of the bed and finally allowed herself to release the breath she'd been holding since stepping off the stagecoach. Whatever demons had driven her west, whatever judgment awaited her in town, she had found temporary shelter in this unexpected place. The days quickly fell into a rhythm at the Double R. Georgiana rose early, helped Grace prepare breakfast for Wyatt and the 2 ranch hands, then spent her days attending to household tasks. She cleaned, mended, cooked, and gradually transformed the bachelor-run home into something more comfortable. Grace, initially reserved, warmed to her as they worked side by side. One afternoon, as they hung laundry in the summer breeze, Grace finally broached the subject Georgiana had been dreading. "People in town are talking," she said without preamble. Georgiana's hand stilled on a shirt she was pinning to the line. "About me, about you, about Wyatt bringing you here." Grace pinned a sheet with more force than necessary. "They're saying terrible things." "They usually do," Georgiana replied quietly. Grace studied her. "You're not going to tell me what happened back east, are you? Would it change your opinion of me if I did?" "Maybe. Maybe not," Grace shrugged. "But I reckon everyone's got things they'd rather not have shouted from the rooftops." Georgiana appreciated her candor. "I made a mistake. Trusted someone I shouldn't have. The consequences were public." Grace nodded, seemingly satisfied with this partial truth. "Wyatt's never cared much what folks think. Makes him a good man but a frustrating brother." "He's been kind to me. He likes you," Grace said matter-of-factly. "Watches you when you're not looking." Heat bloomed in Georgiana's cheeks. "I'm sure you're mistaken." Grace just smiled knowingly and returned to her laundry. That evening, as Georgiana set the table for supper, she found herself studying Wyatt surreptitiously. He'd been gone most of the day, riding the property with his men, and had returned sun-bronzed and tired. Unlike many men she'd known, he carried himself without pretension, straightforward in speech and manner, his hands calloused from honest work. "Something on your mind, Miss Mitchell?" he asked, catching her gaze. "I was wondering why a man like you never married," she said before she could stop herself. A smile tugged at his mouth. "A man like me, established, responsible." She busied herself arranging silverware. "Surely there must be ladies in town who have shown interest." "There might have been." He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "But I've been busy building something here. Haven't had much time for courting. Or perhaps you're particular." His eyes crinkled at the corners. "Perhaps I am." Their conversation was interrupted by Grace bringing in a pot of stew. But something had shifted between them. A door opened just enough to glimpse what might lie beyond. As July melted into August, Georgiana's presence at the ranch became less remarkable. The ranch hands Joe Williams and young Tommy Peterson treated her with the same respectful deference they showed Grace. She found unexpected contentment in the routine of ranch life, far removed from the social constraints of Boston. One evening, as she sat on the porch shelling peas, Wyatt joined her. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, casting long shadows across the yard. "Letter came for you," he said, holding out an envelope. Her heart quickened at the sight of the Boston postmark. "Thank you." "Bad news?" "I don't know yet." She set aside her work and carefully opened the letter, scanning the contents. Her mother's elegant handwriting filled the page with updates from home and thinly veiled inquiries about when she might return to proper society. "Not bad," she said finally. "Just reminders of a life that no longer feels like mine." Wyatt settled into the chair beside her. "Do you miss it? Boston?" "I miss certain aspects, the libraries, the concerts." She folded the letter carefully. "But I don't miss feeling like I was constantly being measured and found wanting." Even before, she confirmed, there were always expectations. The right family, the right connections, the right behavior, especially for women. Wyatt was quiet for a moment. "Out here, people judge differently, by what you can do, how hard you work, whether you keep your word. And yet, they judged me before knowing anything about me." "Some did," he acknowledged. "Others are waiting to see." They sat in companionable silence as twilight deepened around them. Crickets began their evening chorus, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote called to its pack. "Miss Mitchell," Wyatt began, then paused. "Georgiana, may I ask you something personal?" She tensed but nodded. "Are you running from something or towards something?" The question caught her off guard with its perceptiveness. "Both, I suppose. Running from shame toward redemption, maybe. Or just peace." "And have you found it? Peace?" She looked out at the land stretching before them, at the simplicity and honesty of the life she'd stumbled into. "I'm beginning to." His hand moved slowly across the space between them until his fingers rested lightly atop hers. The touch was gentle, tentative, offering comfort without demand. "I'm glad," he said softly. Georgiana didn't pull away. For the first time in over a year, a man's touch didn't feel like a threat or a judgment. It felt like a promise. The peace Georgiana had begun to find was shattered one September morning when Grace burst into the kitchen, her face pale. "They're coming," she said breathlessly. "Half the town, looks like." Georgiana's hands froze in the bread dough she was kneading. "Why, I don't know. But Reverend Phillips is leading them." Fear clutched at Georgiana's throat. She'd been avoiding town, sending lists with Wyatt or Grace when supplies were needed. But it seemed the town had decided to come to her. Wyatt strode in from the barn, his expression grim. "Get inside, both of you." "Wyatt," Grace began. "Now, Grace." His tone brooked no argument. From the window, Georgiana watched as a procession of wagons and riders approached the ranch. At their head was a thin man in black, Reverend Phillips, she presumed, and beside him, a heavy-set woman whose pinched expression was visible even at a distance. "Mrs. Whitley," Grace murmured beside her. "The boarding house owner. And there's Mr. Caldwell from the general store and the Hansons." Wyatt stood on the porch, shoulders squared, as the group halted in the yard. The Reverend dismounted first, approaching with the confidence of a man who believed righteousness was on his side. "Mr. Ryder," he called, "we've come to speak with you about a matter of community concern." "This is private property, Reverend," Wyatt replied evenly, "and I don't recall inviting a committee. When the moral fabric of our community is threatened, we cannot stand idle," the Reverend insisted. "You've brought a woman of questionable character into our midst, Mrs. Whitley stepped forward. "A woman who abandoned her fiancé at the altar after being found in a compromising position with another man. A woman whose shame was so great she had to flee across the country." Georgiana's knees weakened. The distorted version of events was almost worse than the truth. "Is that what you think happened?" Wyatt's voice remained calm. "We know what happened," Mrs. Whitley declared. "The telegraph operator received the full account from his counterpart in Boston." "Then you know nothing," Wyatt said, "and I'd thank you to leave my property." "We're concerned for your sister's reputation," another man called out, "and for the example being set for our children." Grace made a noise of disgust. "As if they care about me." She moved toward the door, but Georgiana caught her arm. "Don't," she whispered. "This is my problem. I should face it." Before Grace could respond, Georgiana stepped onto the porch beside Wyatt. A murmur went through the crowd. "There she is," Mrs. Whitley said triumphantly. "The harlot herself." Wyatt's hand moved protectively toward Georgiana, but she stepped forward on her own. "My name is Georgiana Mitchell," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. "And whatever you've heard about me is almost certainly exaggerated or false. We heard you shamed your family," the Reverend said, "that you behaved immorally with a married man and then fled when discovered." The partial truth twisted her stomach. "I refused to marry a man who proved himself unworthy of respect, much less love. The consequences of that decision were mine to bear, and I have borne them." "Then you admit your sin," Mrs. Whitley pressed. "I admit to trusting unwisely," Georgiana replied. "But I have done nothing to deserve your condemnation, and certainly nothing to harm this community." Wyatt moved to stand beside her. "Miss Mitchell works hard and minds her own business, more than I can say for some of you. This isn't just about her past," the Reverend insisted. "It's about her presence here, unchaperoned with a single man." "My sister lives here," Wyatt pointed out. "And how long before you send Grace away? Everyone knows you've been sweet on her." Georgiana felt her face flame. That's untrue and inappropriate. Is it? Mrs. Whitley's eyes narrowed. We've seen how he looks at you in town. Wyatt's jaw tightened. I've had enough of this. You've said your piece. Now get off my land before I have my men escort you. The standoff lasted several tense moments before the Reverend finally nodded. We'll go, but this matter isn't settled, Ryder. A community has standards. So do I, Wyatt replied coldly. And harassing a woman who's done you no harm falls well below mine. As the group reluctantly dispersed, Georgiana felt a strange mixture of shame and relief wash over her. When the last wagon had disappeared down the road, she turned to Wyatt. I should leave, she said quietly. I'm bringing trouble to your door. You're not going anywhere, he replied firmly. They won't stop, Wyatt. People like that never do. They'll make life difficult for you for grace. Let them try. His blue eyes held hers. Unless you want to go, the question hung between them, weighted with unspoken implications. Did she want to leave this place that had begun to feel like home? This man whose quiet strength had become her anchor? No, she admitted softly. I don't want to go. Something in his expression eased. Then stay. That night, unable to sleep, Georgiana slipped outside. The moon hung full and bright above the mountains, silvering the landscape. She wrapped her shawl tighter against the autumn chill and walked toward the small creek that marked the eastern boundary of the ranch house yard. The sound of footsteps behind her didn't startle her somehow. She'd known he would follow. Couldn't sleep? Wyatt asked, coming to stand beside her. No, too many thoughts. About today, about everything. She turned to face him. You never asked me, about what really happened. Figured you'd tell me when you were ready. She took a deep breath, the night air sharp in her lungs. I was engaged to Edward Harrington, son of one of Boston's oldest families. The match was considered excellent. My father's shipping business would benefit from the connection, and I would gain entry to the highest circles of society. Wyatt remained silent, letting her continue at her own pace. 2 weeks before the wedding, I found Edward with my cousin in a compromising position. When I confronted him, he admitted it wasn't the first time. He expected me to overlook his indiscretions as a wife should. Her voice hardened at the memory. I refused, broke the engagement. Good for you, Wyatt said quietly. Edward was furious, claimed I had led him on, then rejected him. His family spread rumors that I had been the unfaithful one. By the time the dust settled, my reputation was in tatters. My father's business connections were severed, and my mother could barely show her face in society. So you came west. My father died last winter, heart failure, though I think it was really the strain of it all. His friend Thomas Holbrook wrote offering the teaching position, a fresh start. She laughed bitterly, only to discover that gossip travels faster than stagecoaches. Wyatt was quiet for a long moment. Then, carefully, he reached for her hand. Thank you for telling me. Now you know I'm not quite the fallen woman they think I am. I never thought you were. His voice was low, sincere. From the moment I saw you standing there at the station, holding your head high while Ellis talked about you like you weren't even there, I knew you were someone worth knowing. His words warmed something inside her that had been cold for too long. Wyatt, what Mrs. Whitley said today about you being sweet on me, she wasn't entirely wrong, he admitted, his gaze steady on hers. Georgiana's heart quickened. We barely know each other. I know enough. His hand tightened gently around hers. I know you're brave and principled. I know you work hard and don't complain. I know you've made Grace laugh more in 2 months than she has in 2 years. And I know you took in a stranger when everyone else turned their backs, she whispered. I know you defend those who can't defend themselves. I know you built this place with your own hands and run it with integrity. They stood there in the moonlight, the current of something powerful flowing between them. When Wyatt leaned down, Georgiana didn't pull away. His lips met hers in a kiss that was gentle yet sure a question and an answer all at once. When they parted, Georgiana felt as though something fundamental had shifted within her. The shame that had been her constant companion for months had receded, replaced by a tentative hope. "I'm not asking for promises," Wyatt said softly. "Just a chance." "A chance at what?" "At seeing where this leads. At building something together if that's what we both want." She thought about the life she'd left behind, the rigid expectations, the performative relationships, the constant jockeying for position. And she thought about what she'd found here: honest work, genuine connections, and a man who saw her clearly and valued what he saw. "I'd like that," she said finally. His smile was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. "Good." As they walked back to the house, hands still linked, Georgiana felt lighter than she had in over a year. The path ahead wasn't clear, but for the first time she wasn't walking it alone. Winter came early to Montana that year. October brought the first snow, and by November, the ranch was transformed into a wonderland of white. The work changed with the season: less time in the fields, more time repairing equipment, preserving food, and preparing for the long, cold months ahead. Georgiana and Wyatt's relationship deepened gradually, like a river carving its path through stone. They spent evenings by the fire, sharing stories from their pasts, dreams for their futures. On Sundays, they rode to a small church in a neighboring settlement where the reverend welcomed all without judgment. In town, attitudes remained mixed. Some, like Mrs. Whitley, maintained their disapproval. Others, seeing Georgiana's steadfast presence and Wyatt's unwavering support, began to soften. The general store owner now greeted her politely when she came to purchase supplies, and the blacksmith's wife had even invited her to join a quilting circle. One December evening, as snow fell in thick, lazy flakes outside the windows, Wyatt found Georgiana in the kitchen, rolling out dough for a pie. "I have something to show you," he said, a mysterious smile playing at his lips. "Can it wait until this is in the oven?" "I suppose it's waited this long," he replied cryptically. Intrigued, Georgiana hurried to finish her task. When the pie was safely baking, she wiped her hands on her apron and followed Wyatt to his study, a small room off the main living area that she rarely entered. He closed the door behind them and moved to his desk, unlocking a drawer. From it, he withdrew a folded document. "What is this?" she asked as he handed it to her. "Open it." She unfolded the paper carefully. It was a deed to a piece of property at the edge of town. Her eyes widened as she read further. "A school." She looked up at him in confusion. Wyatt leaned against his desk, watching her face. "The town's growing. More families arriving every month. The council's been discussing building a proper schoolhouse instead of using the back room of the church." "But they already have a teacher." "Had," he corrected. "Miss Winters is marrying a rancher from Wyoming Territory. She leaves after Christmas." Georgiana's heart began to race. "Wyatt, what are you saying?" "I'm saying the town needs a teacher, a good one with proper Eastern education. Someone who understands that learning is about more than just reading and figures." "They won't accept me." "Some might not," he acknowledged. "At first, but things have changed these past months. People have seen who you really are, not the gossip, but the woman." Hope, dangerous and fragile, bloomed in her chest. "How did you manage this?" A smile tugged at his mouth. "Turns out owning the land where they want to build gives a man some leverage, and having 2 successful harvests when others struggled didn't hurt." Georgiana stared at the document in her hands, scarcely able to believe what it represented: not just a job, but redemption. A chance to be seen for her abilities rather than her past. "There's something else," Wyatt said, his voice growing serious. He took the deed from her hands and set it aside, then reached for her fingers. "Something I've been wanting to ask you." Her breath caught as he knelt before her. From his pocket he withdrew a simple gold band. "Georgiana Mitchell, I know it hasn't been long, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. I love you, your strength, your kindness, your determination. I love the way you face the world head-on, no matter how it's treated you." Tears blurred her vision as he continued. "I don't care what anyone in town or back east thinks. I don't care about the gossip or the judgment. I just care about you, about us. Will you marry me? Will you build a life here with me?" For a moment, Georgiana thought about the woman who had stepped off that stagecoach months ago, broken, ashamed, certain her life was irreparably damaged. She thought about how far she had come, and how much of that journey had been made possible by the man kneeling before her now. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, Wyatt, I will marry you." His face lit with joy as he slipped the ring onto her finger. When he rose to kiss her, Georgiana felt the last fragments of her old self falling away, making room for who she was becoming, a woman loved not despite her past, but wholly and completely, just as she was. The wedding took place on New Year's Day, 1878, in the Ryder ranch house. Grace had decorated with evergreen boughs and candles, transforming the simple space into something magical. To Georgiana's surprise, several townspeople attended, including the general store owner and his wife, the blacksmith's family, and even the new reverend from the church in town, a younger man with more progressive views than his predecessor. As Georgiana stood beside Wyatt, speaking vows that bound their lives together, she marveled at how much had changed in half a year. From used goods rejected at the station to a bride, a future teacher, a woman respected in her own right. When the reverend pronounced them husband and wife, Wyatt kissed her with a tenderness that made her heart overflow. The small gathering erupted in cheers and well wishes. Later, as they danced in the cleared space of the living room, Wyatt held her close. "Happy, Mrs. Ryder," he murmured against her hair. "Happier than I ever thought possible," she answered truthfully. Over his shoulder, she caught Grace's eye. Her new sister-in-law raised a glass in silent toast, her smile warm with approval and affection. As the evening drew to a close and guests departed into the crisp winter night, Georgiana stood on the porch with Wyatt, his arm around her waist. "Look," he said, pointing to the sky where stars glittered like diamonds against black velvet. "A new year, a new beginning." Georgiana leaned into his embrace, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her side. "For both of us." In the years that followed, the story of how Wyatt Ryder had declared, "I'll take her, just as she is," at the Sweetwater Springs station became something of a local legend. Some told it as a scandal, others as a romance. But Georgiana and Wyatt knew the truth. It was simply the first chapter in a story that continued to unfold with each passing season. The schoolhouse was built that spring, and Georgiana took her place at the teacher's desk. Some parents initially kept their children home, but as her reputation for fairness and excellence grew, even the most reluctant families relented. The ranch prospered under their joint care. 2 years after their wedding, they welcomed a daughter, followed by twin sons 3 years later. Their home became known for its hospitality, a place where travelers, newcomers, and those in need could find acceptance without judgment. And on quiet evenings, when the children were asleep and the day's work was done, Georgiana and Wyatt would sit together on the porch, watching the sun set behind the mountains. In those moments, surrounded by the life they'd built together, Georgiana would remember the frightened, shamed woman who had arrived in Montana territory seeking escape. And she would silently thank the man who had seen beyond labels and gossip to the person she truly was, and the person she could become. In the end, what others had considered damaged goods had proven to be the most precious treasure of all.